he came and filmed in here, and then he had it on off, and he was going to. And then there's up to that, different people brought people from the homes and the skill.
Yes, yeah.
And many bus loads, you know.
Yes, yeah.
So that's they enjoy it. Maybe for an hour at a time. They enjoy it. So they do. Come here. Sit down. Sit down. And be quiet.
Keep talking, John.
Just mad to get out for a walk. So anyway, people bring me things as well. Yeah, and then there's a few antique dealers that come along and stuff and offer to me. Try and stay in the old country house stuff.
Yeah.
Tools. I love knowing about tools as well, you see. This here, these here, the made brick in Tampo area.
Did they, Johnny?
They did, oh aye. But it took me years to find out exactly where. Now
Right.
I know about 4 places where they make them. And that's one of the moulds there.
Right.
And then these 2 brick here came out of the old mill. So I would say those are quite an age.
Heather.
Heathery No, I like that name.
Heather,
there.
no.
It's lovely.
Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Aye.
And then I found this other one coming out of it in the river.
Right.
Same thing. Then you have the tinsmiths produce, the tin porringers,
That's right.
the wee sweet can or milk can, the quart can,
Right.
and when the tinsmith was going around the country selling his wares, he put this over his shoulder,
Right.
and he had this full of cans and
Yes.
big cans and wee cans and porringers, and they tell me that you could hear him coming from one town on to the other, the rattling.
Surely. But Johnny, I never knew they made brick in Tambo.
Oh, they did, but it's a long time ago. And I nearly didn't find out, but one man, an old man, he remembered another older man telling him about it and showing him the place
Right.
and showing him where they got the clay.
Right.
Here we have the nailer's anvil.
Nailers anvil.
Yeah, long ago they made their own nails
Right.
up to about the beginning of the century.
Right. Right.
And the nail, it came in a long bar.
Right.
And then they forged it, put it in the fire, took it out, and worked it then with a hammer on their own wee anvil.
Right. Right.
So he was an important man.
Isn't it?
There's another important man, and he was this was the tinsmith's anvil, by the way.
Right.
This
Right.
is what he made his wares on.
Aye.
This is all he needed.
Yeah.
There's a few other tools, a hammer, a block,
Right.
and a wee inside tool.
Right.
For putting it inside the can when he was.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Well, did he carry that? Did he have that on his knee, Johnny, or?
he sat like this on the side of the ditch, maybe up a lane,
Right.
on a fair day,
Right.
where there'd be a lot of people about,
Right. Right.
and there he'd be working away on the anvil. This would be down on the ground, you see.
Right.
And usually too, they were very secretive about their trade.
Aye.
They wouldn't let it be known how they made their tins.
Right.
They kept it within themselves, within the travelling community. And so if you were walking past up a lane and you passed 2 or 3 of them working away on their anvil, so it would stop,
Right.
you would pass by,
Right.
and that you wouldn't be actually seeing them how they were doing it. There's a tinsmith at work. I took those few shots at Kid You, Printer of Scammon.
Right.
There's a festival on,
Uh-huh.
and this man, he'd be Tom Ward from Mayo, and he made that bucket on the street. In fact, he made several buckets. First of all, he had an old cistern out of the hot press, and he cut it up with a pair of pliers on the street,
Right.
and he proceeded to make that there. And several
Copper?
others, just on the,
Copper bucket.
yeah.
Right there.
And then you had the shoemaker and all his tools.
Right.
And this was another, this is a wee vice used by the shoemaker.
Right.
It was possible, you see, to turn, they would have it between their knees too, and they would be sewing away here.
Right. Right.
And then they could move their material without opening anything up. Just
Right. Right.
pull it out or turn it around or whatever.
Aye. And at the same time, could close it tighter with their knees. That thing sat between their knees, did
It's
it?
not between their knees, no, it was just for holding it.
Oh, right.
The way it's made
Aye.
is where the spring is.
Right. 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 Aye.
Then of course you have the pair of clogs,
The clogs.
wooden soles,
Right.
and these are the irons for a pair. Those I bought those in a shop in Rosmalina, County Mayo. Never
Right.
were used.
Right.
And
Well, I remember them clogs, Johnny.
yes,
When I was a cub at school,
right.
they were fairly widely used.
The way it blew, that's so true. There's various other tools there also. And then we come over to this one here. This here is called a mare,
There.
and a cooper would use this, or a carpenter, or any kind of a tradesman could use this. For instance, we're going to make a spoke for a wheel.
Right.
So what you did, you sat on, you pressed your 2 feet against that, and the wee grip here grips it,
Right.
so it's very tight, and you can use your spoke shield then to turn
Right.
it over,
Surely.
and that's another very old tool
A mare, they call it.
called a mare. Some call it a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have another tool. This one now is, as you can see, it's an oak block,
Right.
called the fallow block. It was for making the fallows, for shaping the fallows.
Right. Right.
How they did it used of the 2 wedges,
Right.
put them in like that, then proceeded to chip out and
Oh.
around the fallow.
Right. That they chipped it out with a hatchet or type of
Yes, with this is called a foot edge.
foot edge.
Foot edge. Some
Aye.
call them nads.
And
They
hand.
still use those in the shipyards.
Right.
And there's one more use this has. You can see an auger here. And then there's some augers there. And a one over here. No, it isn't out.
Right.
One there. They were all marked up with chalk or pencil.
Right.
And then he used the auger here.
Right.
Started the board.
Right. Right.
Did that one.
Uh-huh.
And did this one.
Right. And that.
So that left that fallow ready to build the wheel with.
Right. Right.
These are the thatcher's tools here. This here is called the stapler.
Stapler.
There's the thatcher's needle,
Right.
and that's the mallet, and that's for trimming.
Right.
That's another needle.
Right.
And they used all this, the circuit recycling. That's the blade of a scythe.
Right.
It's been reused, and this here with a wee cutter too for trimming edges.
Right. Right.
So they all that was made from the side also, that bit too.
Surely.
So they reused everything. There was nothing thrown out that could be used.
Aye.
Then here we have various planes and
What is it there? That's some collection of planes there, John.
yeah, some planes there now. They're all different.
All of different
For
uses.
different uses, yeah.
Aye. Well, your father would have used some of them.
I have a few that they used. I have
Aye.
too many, but I do have a few.
Aye.
And But I remember actually more or less where we're standing now, the old workshop was in
Right.
the yard. It was a tin structure with a flattish tin roof.
Right.
And I remember there actually is the wooden base.
Right.
They used a wooden base, it was called a Victorian base.
Right.
And he had a big sheet of timber in that, and he'd be planing away at it,
Mhm.
working away like that.
Right.
And then we'd have to hold it for him. You might be scounded many times.
There's the. That's that. Is that a creel saddle up on the shelf there?
Which now,
See the wee wooden one?
oh there,
Aye.
that's called a crutch.
A crutch.
Yes, there's one on the ground there, and that's for sitting on the donkey's back,
Aye.
and it held a creel on either side.
Right.
And also there's a straw mat, that was on the donkey's back to save
What's
its back being cut.
it? Cut.
Yeah.
Cut I.
It's another old tool that was used in Fermanagh up to about the beginning of the century. They were used on in Cavan and later.
Right.
That's the loy.
The loy.
The loy. It's for setting the ground for potatoes.
Oh, is that for coping? Coping?
Yes.
Is that the,
Yeah.
and I can remember it was a spade.
This one's just been reshafted.
Aye.
Yeah, they became spade works then. McMahon's of Fermanagh were very famous
Right.
for making spades.
Aye.
They made numerous shapes and sizes of spades.
Right.
Um,
That's quite a weapon to be handling, that,
that's
Johnny.
a very big weapon. And the women used that. Oh, I go on by the Rose Shaw photographs. Rose Shaw was a great photographer. She lived in the Clogher area. She
Right.
talked about the beginning of the century and was one of two women
Right.
thinking of that.
There's some women in them days, John.
They were great women.
I want they? We'll leave it at that. Uh-huh. What have we there? What's that there? That there beside the wheel.
Oh, I left this away here because it doesn't belong there. We've got fossils.
What do you call them, Johnny?
This here,
Aye.
that's a horse clipper.
A horse
That's
slipper.
clipping a horse.
Right, right,
Yeah, you turn the handle here.
right.
This
Drove the teeth.
round body.
Aye.
Yeah,
Here you are.
made in America, that one. And this here, of course, is the cart wheel,
Uh-huh.
and it's sitting on the shoe and iron,
Right,
the large shoe and iron,
right.
which was used for putting the iron hoop on.
Yes, yes.
First of all, the wheelwright built the wheel,
Uh-huh.
then he had to put a hoop on it. So the hoop came on a straight bar,
Right,
and bent the bar
right,
and made it into a circle and
right,
closed it together and put
Right.
it onto a fire beside this here,
right.
a fire of turf.
Turf, right,
But they usually did 10 wheels at one time, so they had maybe 10 shoe and iron sitting
right,
on the fire,
right, right.
all being prepared.
Aye,
So what happened was, when it was ready, a man on either side
right,
lifted the forged tongs like that, and they lifted the hoop, one man here, another man over there,
right,
carried the red hot hoop over, and they set it down on the wooden wheel.
right,
Of course, as it hit the wooden wheel, it started to burn the wheel,
right,
and up went smoke and blaze.
right, right,
So they threw down the tongs like that, and they lifted heavy hammers,
right,
or sledges,
right,
and they started going round
right,
this, beating round, everyone walked round like this. I remember in our yard, and as children, we were in charge of the water, and we had buckets of water at the ready
right,
to
right,
cool it down and quench the blaze.
right, right,
So everything was done circular, the water was going on, the men were hammering, there was a bit of cursing done,
right, right,
and it was beat on as tight down as it could go.
uh-huh,
Now that hoop had to be perfectly made, otherwise there was two things could happen.
right,
If it was made too tight, could burst the wheel.
right,
If it was made too loose, it would fall off going up the road.
right,
So usually they were good at their job, and it was all done by their they're gristing, and then all was cooled down, and there was a trough of water beside it, and the water, the wheel then was revolved in the trough of water
Right.
to cool the whole thing down.
Right. Right.
That was that way, it was set over,
Uh-huh.
started the same process again.
Right. And there's the man that used to do it, George Kidney. What George had done for it?
George Kidney, well, we actually got that sign made for. George had a forge on the other side of the bridge.
Aye.
Do you remember it?
I know, I remember it well.
Right. George was a blacksmith.
Right.
George made and repaired ploughs and harrows, and he shod horses.
Right.
In our yard here, the more we had a forge also, we didn't shoe horses.
Right.
We just made the irons for the vehicles,
Right.
the carts and the traps.
Right. Right.
So there was a difference there.
Aye. But yours actually was coach building,
It was
originally.
a coach building, and yes, carpentry and coach building.
Mm-hmm.
Here now is a stand. That's a part of a very old stand there, and this stand was you took off the wheel if the vehicle wanted to do something with the wheel or paint
Right.
it, so you put it onto the wheel stand,
Right.
and it revolved like that, or did whatever you wanted it to do.
Right.
Then if you were painting it and putting all the lines, you had your wee kind of paint, you had your brush. The handle
Right.
of it was only that length. The
Yeah.
hairs were that length.
Right. Right.
Now the reason for that was, it was camel hair was used. The reason for that was that when they would start the line, there was enough paint on the brush to do the whole line without stopping.
Right.
So this is how they did it. They used their hand like that, and one hand to turn the wheel, the other hand to hold the brush.
Right.
And when that was stopped, then they had their line on.
That was putting the line on the line, the body's the same.
There's line, and that's what I'll be talking about there.
Yes. Yes.
That's line and that's line.
Aye.
That was done fairly recently.
Uh-huh. And that should give it the decoration.
That's for decoration. Yeah.
Decoration and finesse.
That particular article there is a spring van.
It's not a trap as such, it's a spring
No,
van.
it's neither a trap nor a cart.
Right.
That article there went to the town with himself and herself sitting on a board across the middle,
Right.
and they brought home a bag of flour, a bag of meal, a lot of groceries.
Right.
As well as that, it could have went to the town, to the market with a flock of turkeys for the
Right.
turkey market at Christmas.
Uh-huh.
It could also brought a litter of small pigs to the fair,
Right. Right.
and they would be covered with a big bag out of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lovely article, and it was very well made.
It finished in the same type of finish as the trap.
It was. It is springs, you see.
Not
Very nice to sit on too, so it was.
not everybody had one of them, Johnny.
No, not everyone had one of those.
It
In
was
fact, when people started around the country selling groceries,
Mhm.
this is what they used first of all.
right.
All people selling groceries would have used one of these.
Aye.
They had a big basket, or they called them a hamper,
Aye.
on the bodies, and maybe they had a can of oil in there as well.
Right.
And they sold the groceries around the country in one of those.
Uh-huh.
And this here's
The trap.
the pony's trap.
Pony's
Horse's trap, actually.
Aye, that's the first size of a trap, that.
That is a good size. That particular trap was made in this yard in 1914 by my grandfather
Boys are there.
for Mrs. McCaffrey. There was a man called Irish Pat McCaffrey,
Right.
and this trap was made for his mother.
Where about part of the country was that from, Johnny?
Edna Gilhorn,
Here in the Gilhorn.
out this road here.
Right. Right.
And she wanted a good trap, and
Right.
that's the trap there.
Uh,
And I had Joe McCusker of Ballyway in the shop one day some years ago, and he mentioned to me that we had a trap made by our people.
right.
So we had to give it to me, so it's very
Boys, dear, it's not
coming
okay.
like it. And how it was saved, it was in a barn, halfway out the lane.
Right.
Had the barn been in at the house, probably would have been used for little pigs
Right.
or something,
Mhm.
but being out the lane was left untouched for all those years.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you put it down to the preservation? Was it the finish was put on it? Or the cover.
I actually painted it now since I got it.
Right, right.
A preservation, I think, was put down to
A dry shed.
a dry loft.
Dry.
There was kettle underneath.
Ah, right, right.
And also a window with no window in it.
Right. So it had ventilation
There was
and had a bit of heat as well coming up from the float below.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't riddled with woodworm or anything.
No,
It was
no.
in reasonably good shape. I had it out in the first flower in 1986, but I wouldn't put it out again just in case anything would happen.
Right, right.
So
Johnny, this one here, what's that one? This saddle
This
here.
here?
Aye.
That come from Johnny Slavin's daddy here.
Right.
For carrying water.
Oh, I said there.
Yeah. Carry 2 buckets of water like that.
Oh, I said there.
Yeah.
And
That's it demonstrated there in a lithograph. An unfinished lithograph.
right. Hold her wee bit square. That's it. Lovely. Good man. And that there for carrying the buckets of water,
This
that's a
here-
later.
This was the old way in Tampo. And long ago when there was no tap water, or no pumps in the street, I'm talking about the 1920s,
Right.
there was a well called Neddy's Well at this side of Tampo, and the other side was Pender's Glen Well.
Right.
So the people went there and carried their water, but some people were old and young people would go and carry the water for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the methods there. Now that frame keeps the buckets very steady.
Keeps them from.
Keeps them out from their
Splashing.
clothes and keeps them steady. You could walk any length with that.
Mm-hmm.
They also had a round circular frame as well.
Right. Very good. That array of spades there,
Yes.
that's all the turf spades, is it?
Not necessarily, no. There's
Well, I know that pitchfork there, that big long pitchfork was for pitching onto the stack.
that's correct.
Pitching onto the stack,
It's called the long fork.
the long fork.
And they tell me there might have been only one in every town land.
That's right.
And when they were coming near the top of the pack, which was the biggest stack of all, the young lad was sent to whosever house it was
Right.
to get the long fork. So,
That's what that is. And those are various.
well, here you have some shovels.
Aye.
That's a kind of a homemade effort there.
Right.
And here's the lorry again.
Oh, the lorry, yeah.
Yes. And here we're into torch spades now.
Right.
That's the one that we would know here in this area.
That's
you would
right.
remember too.
Oh, very well.
Aye.
Very well.
Now this here is probably more from the Leighton cabin, Derry Lynn side.
Right. The bigger men there.
It's just the style.
Aye.
See, everything had a style. Tampo had a style of a horse's cart. Enniskillen had a style. Lisnaskea had a style.
Boys there.
Yeah, and it probably went the same in the like of these.
Mm-hmm.
Some man's idea. He wasn't going to stick rigidly to whatever he saw.
Right.
I like that one there because it's so original and homemade,
That's right. Aye.
bolted up.
But it'll be short turf that.
It's possible, all right.
Aye.
Some of these also were used. They had different methods of cutting. We would remember the three men going to
That's
the
right.
bog. But sometimes one man operated himself,
That's right. And he had to throw them up.
and this was called slinging.
Slinging.
And that's what I believe this here was put on it for, the cow's horn,
Right.
because it was torn in his hand
Right.
when it was being slung.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
More spades. This would come very close to a McMahon.
McMahon.
What's the water?
What's what?
What's the water here for this?
No, it's right there. No, that way. She comes to the airport, there's a liquor at the airport. At,
They were quite a long.
They were.
But then they were tailored to people as well.
Yeah.
McMahon would have. You could have went into McMahon and sort of ordered your spade.
Yes.
Aye.
You could. Here's another article now. This here. That's called a Stevine.
Stevine.
Yeah. And that was for making a hole for the potato.
Right.
And that's what cut out of the heads there.
Boy, sit down. the bean.
to be. And then this the hay rake
Uh-huh.
and various other pitchforks.
And that was the chafing rake there.
Yes,
Chafing, it was chafing corn.
that's right. It pushed the corn forward for the cutter to cut.
That's right. And that knife there, is that part of the cutting knife for cutting hay?
That'd be a hay knife, just
Aye.
he used maybe, I don't know what he used that for, whoever had that. Maybe for clipping a hedge or whatever.
What's this one here for?
I'm not sure about that one.
Uh-huh. Looks like a planter.
Maybe in
An
the
early-
forest, maybe forestry people use it.
An early planter or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is the horse's saddle.
Yes.
Quite a good one too.
That's quite a good saddle now. That wouldn't be an Irish saddle now,
No.
that would be probably come out of Scotland.
That is no poor man's saddle either.
No, a lot
Of course, there's
of brass using that.
a lot of brass using it.
Mhm.
And that machine there, if we give you a hand on,
This here,
the clean corn is
no, this is a miniature thrasher.
miniature thrasher.
It was Andy Breen of Clobby made that.
Oh, I
Andy
see.
was a thrashing man in his day.
Right.
He was also a good carpenter.
Right,
And whenever Andy retired, he started making miniatures.
right.
And you might have seen the wee carts and all down there.
That's right.
Andy made them.
Mhm.
But he made this here.
Yes.
You see the way he
That's
has
the
it working?
feeders. That's feeding the horn, the
That's
corn,
right.
and the chafing.
Yes.
Uh,
No, the calipers.
well, that's right. That was the taking it out,
It was.
taking the straw out.
Yes.
Aye, and dropping down.
So he laid hands on him.
Yeah. And that's a crook there, part of a crook, is it?
That's a small crane crook now. I'm
Mhm.
not exactly sure. It must have been out of a small fire.
Aye.
Used in small fire.
And that's the big black pot,
That's
anyway.
the pot for boiling the potatoes.
Yes,
And that's the lid of it there.
right.
And this is the iron pounder.
Pounder. That's right. That's
Yeah,
just
that's
what
for mashing them all up.
washing up. Aye. And is that the barrel? Is this just barrel there, or
That was for spraying.
for
Spraying
spraying?
the potatoes.
Spraying,
They drew that out in the cart or water cart.
That's right.
And then they filled it full of water. Then they put in, they used a mixture of 8 pound of bluestone and 10 pound of washing soda,
Right.
or 7 pound of bluestone and 9 pound of washing soda. There's 2 pound of difference.
Right.
And the washing soda was all mixed up in there. Then they tied the bluestone in a bag and held it in there and mixed the whole thing up. And then they poured it into their back sprayer and walked around up and down the powder drills.
You get no man to do that today, Johnny.
They'll not.
No. And that's the churns,
This is the dash churn.
the dash churn.
Yes,
A
the dash
soul
churn.
destroying job.
Yes.
A soul destroying. Just lift that out again, Johnny.
Staff
sold
turn
it.
Yeah.
Aye.
This is the dash.
Aye. Soul destroying
was-
job. I
it
think it's
was-
the
Manual.
hardest churn alive.
Very hard to do. I remember doing it myself now. Yes.
I can remember doing it in Tunnies,
Yes.
non-Conlon,
Yes.
and I ain't telling you it was no.
Yes. It took about an hour
No,
to churn it. And if anyone came into the house, they would have to take a brush to churn. Otherwise, it would be bad luck and the butter wouldn't come out right.
and that there's the tumbling churn behind it.
That's right.
That's the later edition.
That's correct. That would be. There were a variety of different types of churns. That's quite a good specimen there.
That's right.
Any pressure valve there.
Aye.
I don't think there were many of those in this area now.
Aye. Eileen's mother
That was the
My-
one after one.
mine had one of those, one of the tumbling churns.
Right.
Mm.
Some people turned in the creamery can.
Did they?
Yes. A lot of people did.
Right, yeah. Suppose they had, if it's according to the milk, they might have it.
The churn would have cost money too.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And if they could have churned it in the creamery can.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, and that's the wash day blues.
That's right.
That's the scrubbing board
That's right. You put
and the tub.
So you put that in you rub them up and down and you rub the body of soap and then
That's right. It's all labour intensive.
remember my mother using that. That's another type of churn there.
That's right. That Tony's got that churn after the staff churn.
Is
A
that
small
right?
churn.
Yeah.
That made life very, very easy.
Yeah.
But there was so much to churning as well, because you had to have the milk right,
You did.
and so many things when it had.
Everything had to be very clean.
Oh, I
and
spot it.
scrubbed.
Because the milk, if you didn't get the butter right, it'd be tacked. Was not the word.
That's right.
There you are. And we're here to a creel here, Johnny.
Yeah.
I suppose them turf come from Brocker, did they?
They probably brought it to a farm, right? And the creel was made in Adderley.
Right, you are.
Yeah.
That small barrel there, Johnny, what was it for?
They are.
Aye.
Well, I would say originally that might be called a quarter barrel.
Right, right,
I think there must have been flour kept in it,
right.
some late stage.
Aye.
But seemingly whenever they had a good day's work done, and maybe they had it born in, there was a quarter barrel or a half barrel of whiskey or stout sent for,
Right.
and it was a great evening then.
Mm-hmm.
So
What's the thing like a?
that there,
It's like a
there's a comrade in here. That's a giant puffball. Puffball.
puffball.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw it in the field and first I thought it was a stone,
Uh-huh.
and then I surmised it was a salt lick.
Right.
Going a bit closer, I had to touch it, and
Right. Right.
I discovered it was a giant puffball. And that's the spores. It spreads the spores right. That's how it propagates itself.
Right.
The rain comes along and batters it, and the wind batters it, and then it spreads away out.
Uh-huh.
So
What's it for?
It's a growing thing.
it'll be fungi.
Yeah, fungi. Yeah. Uh-huh. This is a later bath here,
That's right.
and the scrubbing. This is the bath that I can remember,
Yes.
and the
Very
washboard. And those washboards, a lot of them were made of glass.
There was wooden, glass, tin.
Yeah. That's right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There you are now. Let's go to someone. This is the Anvil.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't tell me about the mallets.
Oh, I. What is he now?
I remember this.
This here. Usually the farmer and townspeople too, if they kept pigs, would keep a pig for themselves, would kill the pig and keep it. But there was a man who was always called the butcher, and he was called in to do the killing.
That's right.
Pig butcher. Henry
So
Clayton.
the poor pig was dragged out onto the yard anyway, and he was faced with that there, and that just hit him between the eyes and
Stunned him.
stunned him, and
Then the butcher
then stuck him with a knife. and
stuck him with a knife
bled him.
and bled him.
Then he was put up on an old table and boards,
Mm-hmm.
and he was scalded and
Spooned.
scrubbed.
Spooned and scrubbed, scraped. Well, that's another mallet there beside you. That other one. That's a pig mallet too.
It's just another sample line.
That's the type of mallet that Henry Clayton had.
Is it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
It is indeed. They, in some of the cases, they used a wee sledge,
Didn't they?
small sledge, yes. Banty Lytle's son Willie, that's all he ever used, or wee, and he very rarely missed. But I remember Henry
Yeah.
Clayton on occasions missing, chasing the pig round. What is that thing there at your toe? Is that just a
I think it's just from the railway.
from the railway?
Something from the railway.
That's a plough,
Sock for a plough.
sock for a plough.
Yes.
Uh,
There were various shapes and sizes.
You've a lot of stone about you, Johnny.
Yeah.
Where did these stones all come from, or what is their origin?
This one here, this is called
Eileen, remember our stone at home? We have one of these at home, Johnny, so just tell Eileen there what it is. What is it?
This is for pounding winds for horses. The
Pounding winds for horses.
Pounding winds for horses.
Right, right.
And the story goes that if you had two horses ploughing together up a field, and one horse had been fed that morning with pounded winds and the other one hadn't, the one that hadn't would get faint and actually fall down and not be able to carry on at all. So then he had to be fed with the same
Right,
winds.
right.
That's the story anyway.
You tell it very well, John.
Yeah.
To pay the two of them. Curls in the
And
morning.
that's another,
This is another fallow block, actually, a stone one.
right,
Which
same,
is
does the same job,
quite rare, yes,
Mhm.
the same job you bore your holes with your,
right.
yeah.
And these stones now,
Well, this here is a pair of quern stones. They were for grinding corn.
that's
They
right,
would go back a few thousand years.
right,
There was a spud in here, and you turned one on top of the other, you put the corn in there, and the flour came out here.
right,
This here is a saddle quern. That's probably much earlier than those. So
Right.
you're going back about 4,000 to 5,000 years for this one.
Right,
Right,
right.
And that was found locally here in this area.
right.
Uh,
That one there with the square cut out on it.
that is there's a date on that stone.
Right,
If you can maybe just pick it up, maybe you can. It's 1787, and there's like a cross there. So it's possible out of an old chapel. It's possibly a holy water
what is a drop?
and water chop.
1787. A holy waterfall?
Possible.
No, it is surely. And that one there, Johnny, with the small stone, that was someone that was
I
done.
think that was for grinding herbs.
Right. Aye.
Possibly had a stone like that, and
Yes, yes, yes.
it was for something small,
Aye.
obviously.
Mhm.
And this here was for tying a horse to. If you were breaking in a horse,
Right,
you would tether him to that.
right. Mhm. And all these other stones you have, that's another stone similar there.
That's a half quern there.
Half-
That came from Crete.
Right,
It was found down in the bog,
Mhm.
but the other half was missing.
right,
And this here would be a grinding stone for grinding, sharpening knives and
Knives.
scythes and so forth.
right, right. Mhm. And you have a spinning wheel in there, I see.
There is. Going around them, so go around. Doesn't matter.
What sort of date would that be, Johnny? You got any idea? Would it,
I suppose it's 100
uh,
in years.
about the turn of the century?
Yeah, around that.
Mhm.
They had did spinning in this area,
Right,
but not. I don't think really in this century now.
right. Aileen, how long is it since your mother spun?
Oh, she got it when she was young girl. And she's dead in 1979.
What year was your mommy born?
She was born before the turn of the century, born 1890 something.
Right.
Yeah.
And she used the spinning wheel.
Wanted at a strike.
Sure.
It's anything very important, Johnny, because the battery's just beginning to show signs that it's...
I'll show you now.
Yeah.
Right. There's this here. That's an axe head.
Next head.
That was found in the townland of Boholkin.
Right,
It would have had a handle,
right,
and they would have used it for cutting down, felling trees.
right,
In fact, you can see a few here with cuts. Those came out of Emeroo. The man was draining,
right,
and he got them carbon dated in Queens and Belfast, and
Right.
the date came out. They were able to tell him the year the tree was felled,
right.
roughly about 3,500 years ago,
Wait, dear,
and that's part of it there.
right. You can
Here
leave
we
it.
have a wee thing called a whorl, and it is for spinning,
Right,
and that's it in use there.
right,
It was for spinning thread, and that's it there.
Right.
Stone.
Uh-huh.
They're made from different things. This one here was found in a bog 11 torf deep.
wait,
It
dear.
was quite an age.
It would be,
Yeah.
would be. Mm-hmm.
Here we have stones now that were found where people used to cook long ago.
Right.
That was called the Fulloch Fia, or a burnt mound. the same as we eat today, that people a few thousand years ago had to eat also.
Right.
So what they did was that they dug a pit down in the ground,
Right.
about 3 to 4 foot deep, 2 foot wide, about 4 foot long.
Right.
They lined it with stones or bog oak. They
Right.
filled it with water.
Right.
It was easily done because they usually made it beside a burn,
Right.
and then they diverted the water from the burn into the pit.
Right.
So over beside that they lit a fire,
Right.
and they put all these stones on the fire.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of stones. So at some stage the stones become very hot,
Uh-huh.
and they put them into the water and started to boil the water.
Right.
They had their piece of meat prepared, venison or pig.
Right.
They made a straw rope, and they bound the meat up in the straw rope
Right.
to keep it clean while it would be in the water.
Right. Right.
And then they placed it in the water, and it cooked the meat within very quickly, within a couple of hours.
Right. Right.
So that's there are several of those
Mhm.
places in